What's up, everybody? Welcome to Bingetown TV. This is Brian here with Jimmy, Kyle, and producer Dave. And today we're going to be talking HBO's new hit series, The Last of Us. This is going to be season 1, episode 8, entitled When We Are in Need. And before we get into the episode, I do want to reroute you over to BingetownTV.com as usual. March is a pretty big month for Bingetown TV. We got The Last of Us, obviously, Yellow Jackets, Shadow and Bone is right around the corner. But go over to BingetownTV.com. You can see our whole catalog. All of our episodes were over like 350 now. So I'm sure you can find something you like. And of course, the easiest way you can support the podcast is just by hitting that follow, subscribe button, whatever it may be. Just hit the button, please. And thank you. We really appreciate the support. There we go. So let's get into this episode, guys. Episode 8, and the pulse of the group chat was definitely positive. It is currently sitting at a 9.5 on IMDb. So that's 2 for 2 there. And of course, this one's all about Ellie. And a really great villain in this David character who just kind of the layers of the character unfold as the episode progresses and he kind of shows his true colors. But I think all in all, it was a really good episode, just very eerie, creepy, no infected again, but probably the biggest light being shed on humans descending into just being barbarians or like their most primal instincts, which is sometimes even scarier than the infected can be. But I'm going to toss it over to the Rooks. What are we thinking here?
Well, first of all, it's very nice to be back. Obviously, Dave and I took a bit of a hiatus last week to go win what is it even? I guess an adult recreational volleyball championship. So
we're now Champion TV. We've switched from Bingetown TV to
Champion Town TV, Champtown TV.
It feels good to come back after a win instead of coming back after that devastating Eagles championship loss. So we're not all losers in the city of Philadelphia. But this episode I thought it was fantastic. After it ended, your emotions are jumbled and everything. And I said out loud, like, wow, that might be my favorite episode. Maybe besides episode 3, who can say? But the one thing I took away from it that just like one of the most like visceral things that hit me was like, I didn't even realize that we never really had like a religion component in the show yet.
Yeah.
It seems like so obvious that there would eventually be one. So like when they started that way, I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. And I'm very interested to see where this goes. And it went way crazier than I thought it was going to go in a good way.
Yeah, this was a banger of an episode. Probably my second favorite, still sitting behind 5, I believe it was, as the mid-season set point, I guess you would call it. But this was a banger of an episode. My only complaint, which I'm not even going to say is a complaint because I'm kind of starting to realize that this isn't true, but my complaint with the first 6 episodes has always been, we haven't gotten enough clickers. But I think this episode really, for me, has established that this isn't really about the zombies itself. It's more about the people and the nature of what they do and the surroundings, the environment that they control. And so once I kind of let that resonate a little bit more with me, and I set the expectations down to have actual clickers in each episode, I think I've been able to enjoy this show a lot more. And this episode was a perfect example of that because coming into it, I was like, we're 2 episodes away from the finale. We better get some clickers or at least some kind of clicker motion. But once I set those standards aside and kind of just watched it to view it as, this isn't just a zombie apocalypse show, it's more about the nature of people, then I was able to fully enjoy it. And I think this episode, again, probably my second favorite episode of the season so far.
I think it's safe to say when it comes to any of the zombie apocalypse shows or anything where it's like post-apocalyptic, the good stuff, like the good shows, there's nothing wrong with having like straight on action and fighting some zombies. But the good shows are about, like you said, Dave, the people and how they react to everything and whether they, rise up or fall down. We've seen all aspects of that. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, Walking Dead, very similar until it kind of went downhill. Like it was always about the people, the relationships, everything like that. The Last of Us is nailing it on every aspect for that. I love this episode as well. Part of me was wondering, and we talked about this, Brian, Dave and Kyle, you missed it last episode, but we were saying how we were wondering if they were going to have to pack too much into 2 episodes. And part of me was hoping that this was going to be an hour episode or even like a little bit of an extra oomph, maybe that 110, 115, give me a little bit of that, because I think they did nail it, but there could have been a little bit more. There was some times where it was getting into the David stuff where it was jumping from one to the next, the next, the next. And while it was great, I was like, you could let it marinate a little bit for me. But otherwise, I really, really enjoyed it. And I probably would put it as well as my second or third. I'm on Kyle's side here about three's probably still number one, and then five is there. So yeah, it's close. And again, it's recency bias because it just happened and we just watched it. But yeah, it was a great episode.
Yeah, to build on Jimmy, what you just said, and kind of Dave about there not being infected, they actually did omit a very infected heavy scene from the video games that I think probably could have added a lot to the development of Ellie and this character, David. But I think we're going to get to that, or I'll be sure to get to that when we get to that scene. But without further ado, are we ready to jump in here?
Always.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So last episode, we had our snowy vibes. It is definitely well into winter. It is a harsh environment, just windswept, snowy, everything. We see this town on the lake. I just love the snowy vibes for this show. It just works. But we have this narration of who we find out to be David going right in with this religious angle. He is immediately establishing himself as kind of a leader, a preacher, of religious figure within this band of survivalists that are just hunkering down in this town. So what do we think about this first scene with the little girl and him? I kind of want to pick your guys' brains. At what point do you guys realize David is the bad guy? Because it's not yet, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely much further into the episode, I would say. There's definitely like many more scenes where he seems genuinely okay. And then it kind of, for me, I feel like it turned somewhat quickly. I guess I didn't, maybe I'm a terrible judge of character and I'm too comfortable around people, but he didn't seem like he was that creepy, crazy of a person until like, it seemed like he was almost not forced to be, but like Ellie obviously is not giving him what he wants. So he kind of freaks out. He seemed pretty kind. I mean, I'm generally wary of overly religious characters, especially in situations and shows like this, but I really thought that his background in it was effective and believable, reasonable, all of that. So I liked him a lot as a religious character in the first half of the episode, and then obviously he devolves a little bit.
Yeah, I think for me, it was hard, exactly what Kyle was kind of saying. It was a little bit hard deciphering whether, you know, he was going to be a good guy or how evil he was. For me, I think the selling point was when he slapped the girl. That kind of was just like, okay. That's
I
just
literally,
like,
as bad as I laughed out loud when that happened.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is where you kind of get the religious like nutcase aspect of it, where, you know, and he calls himself. I did like the aspect of him calling himself like father to everyone. Like that's just it just seems like hand in hand with him being called father and religion and him building
that's
this
when it
following
turned for me.
Yeah, and like because it seemed like it was his rule was established through like some kind of like subliminal fear through the people. Like I don't think the people around him like directly fear him, but when they are prone to seeing him snap, I guess occasionally, and then those are the moments where they're maybe like kind of thinking hesitantly like, okay, maybe this guy wasn't the person we should have put in charge. But he was an interesting character because of the religious aspect that we had been so missing in the first, 7 episodes.
And as they, all the survivors are just funneling out of the steakhouse, I guess it is. And then we meet this James character who kind of has a one-on-one. He kind of seems like the right-hand man, almost a sounding board throughout the episode. David cares what this guy has to say, shall we say. So what do we think about this James character?
Though, man.
Yeah,
no, absolutely not. But maybe he could handle himself in front of a bloater better.
I personally, I liked David. David was anti-team, anti-squad.
You mean James?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're talking about the
yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
James. Yeah, you would throw me off because I call you James sometimes.
We had Kathleen once in the show, and now we have James in the show.
Now we have James and.
Well, David,
I want to kill Ellie.
And David.
Oh, yeah.
Dave's sitting there not even realizing his namesake.
The show's about us, actually.
I enjoyed James. Like I said, anti-squad, but I liked him as a character. I thought him and David had like a good kind of duo. Maybe like obviously they worked well together if you want to go like in universe, but just as like a viewer watching, I liked their kind of like back and forth and the way that they reacted to things, the way that James would kind of show displeasure with David, and then David would show it back to James about things. And I honestly, I genuinely enjoyed him.
Yeah, I enjoyed him too. Not much to dive off of that. The one thing that was confusing for me, at least, maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit here, but we did see these two like briefly at last episode, right? Like we did see this whole faction last episode briefly, or maybe I'm thinking of something else.
You're
but
watching the trailer.
That,
the preview.
that might have been it,
Well,
because the only thing
the
that's like that was confusing for me was I honestly thought that they were a part of the same town that Tommy and them were from, because they were both living in a snowy, deserted field that it looked to be the same to me. So early on, it was hard for me to determine, because especially when Ellie and them clash early on about the deer, I'm thinking like, why doesn't she just tell him that like they know Tommy? But it obviously full circle.
That would have been funny.
Yeah.
So you were thinking that when this episode starts, that Tommy's town has like this religious cult kind of thing.
Yes.
I guess it's not necessarily cult right away, but okay,
Yes.
okay. So yeah, I mean that would suck for that town if that was what they were doing, eating people and having some leaders named David. But I mean, Brian,
Whoa.
me and you,
Yeah.
man, this was tough because we knew what David was going to be right away. So as soon as he comes onto the screen, I'm like, oh, you little bastard.
Like Kyle said, everybody should be wary of any character that's introduced in this show that isn't Joel or Ellie, and even be wary about them. They're kind of playing both sides of the fence.
Just like a general thought bouncing off of that is like I think this episode did a great job of like kind of giving us perspective on our characters. Like we're obviously pro squad, pro team for sure. Like I'll defend Joel and Ellie in the fucking war crime tribunal in Geneva whenever they want me to, but like gives us a little perspective of like what their actually impact is on other characters. I thought that was actually nice for us.
It's interesting too, because none of the characters, like there's no good character. Like even our main characters, Joel and Ellie, they are far from being good. Like Joel had just murdered a father. That was like one of the main reasons they were just searching for Joel and Ellie.
Himself.
Yeah, he's defending himself with like his past. Like even Ellie has some dark demons in her. Like no one is good. So even David, who thinks he's the perfect good you can get by following God and everything, clearly also has some demons. So I think it's just interesting. Like there's no good characters. That's just really it at the end of the day.
Did you connect the dots, Dave, at the beginning? Or was that a thought in your head at all when they mentioned that the little girl lost her dad and that it could have possibly been the guy that Joel killed?
It definitely took me a little bit longer than it should have.
I didn't catch it until they literally told us. So.
Dude, I didn't catch it, and I mean not that this is in the game or anything, but like I know and Brian knows what the deal is with like the resort and David and James and all this stuff, but at the same time, because they started off like with the religious background where obviously David's bad, but the people, they don't know anything. It doesn't seem like they know anything. They don't know they're eating people. They don't know what David is.
Mm-hmm.
There's only a couple people that know that and are privy to it. But I was going, all right, well, if they're saying that this girl who's having the mom and everybody pray, her dad is the one that was the hunter. They looked pretty like barbaric, those 4 hunters that were going after Joel. I mean, they saw that there was a person and they were chasing him down, and he didn't even have a second to do anything. The guy turned around or Joel turned around, the guy swung whatever it was, an axe or whatever the hell it was at him. So that was pretty hunter-ish, not, I'm a religious man-ish, so that's where I was a little bit confused at first going, it has to be that. And then when they said it, I was like, okay, but
yeah, me and Luke while watching, I think we were talking for like, we had to pause it for a second. We're like, who were they talking about with the father? And then it had clicked for me, like after we had paused it and discussed it, I was like, okay, last episode, some random scavenger got killed. It must have been that guy that they were referring to. And it was.
They lulled us to sleep with the flashback episode.
Yeah, that might have been what it was.
It was like the perfect break where it was like,
you're right. It was 2 episodes
forgot
again.
about the other guy.
Right.
Yeah, it was 2 episodes ago. That's why. Yep.
Yeah.
So that brings us to our first visual of Ellie and Joel in this scene. Joel is still kind of feverish in bed. Ellie's trying her best to take care of him. No resources. She's like completely out of her depth here, but she's a little bit bored. Joel's asleep. She looks over at the rifle, picks up the rifle, decides to go hunting. This was pretty long segment of the game. I remember you kind of track down this deer for about a good 15-20 minutes. It's a really cool little stretch of gameplay in the video game, so I appreciated them doing this. She actually does not kill the bunny, which she does very much take out with a bow and arrow in the game, but then she does track this deer, which leads us to James and David. I loved how she was trying to mask her voice before they turned around to give the impression maybe she was just like a younger boy and stuff like that. She handles herself as well as she can, and it just goes to show this isn't her first rodeo. This is like her 15th time being in one of these wild situations. She knows how to handle herself, and she does just that. But David is kind of able to manipulate the situation, talk her off the ledge, and kind of be like, let's take shelter. So just give me your impressions on how this first interaction between Ellie and David goes. Are you starting to see the cracks in David at this point or not yet?
No, still not yet. He definitely had me. It was like I was still kind of nervous for Ellie here, and it was kind of like when you get the conclusion of it, I'm going to jump to the end, but we'll obviously circle back and talk about all of it, of just like the fact that she pretty much ended up letting her guard down and getting taken from behind, and essentially is lucky that David is David. At least that's part of David he lets come out, because like they easily could have just killed her and like it would.
James was I think ready to pull that trigger the moment
he wanted to.
The moment he pieced it together that was the girl that the other scavengers had referenced, like there was a guy and a girl. He was, I think, so ready to pull the trigger, and like even I think that was part of the reason why he was so hesitant to go back to the village in the first place. Not even just to provide resources for Ellie, but it's just like, dude, this girl has just killed one of our own. I'm gonna leave you here with her. So yeah, I think overall, though, Ellie has just been, this was probably my favorite Ellie episode, and it's only ever been getting higher and higher in terms of just my compliments and me loving her. And this episode, she was just full on badass, man. She did not seem like a little girl in this episode at all. She seemed like she was right there at the level, maybe not right there at the level of Joel, but Ellie's still capable of, even if something, I'm now feeling confident in the point that like if something were to happen to Joel, which it did, but she could at least continue on her own if it ever got to that point of, Joel being actually killed off. I don't think it will happen, but it was cool to see that Ellie does have those survival skills now.
It was a bit of a mixed, I would say, like result for her. I was proud of her that she thinks to bargain for the medical supplies, and that was like a great move, and it ends up working out. But then obviously the negative was that like if it was anyone else, she probably would have ended up dying anyway. So I like that they showed like her experience, but the fact that she still isn't completely kind of there as like this rugged survivalist, which would be kind of too much, I would say, of growth for her over however many episodes.
You're right. She's not fully fleshed out survivalist. Like even her escape plan to distract the guys from getting to Joel wasn't like, I guess, a great plan in itself. It was the right idea, but it could have been probably executed a little differently and better. But I think again, she has her flaws, but she's great still.
She's so funny when she just goes, "Hey, fuckers," and then just starts shooting at them. And we'll get there, obviously, but that just made me laugh.
Yeah, and I don't want to go any further without giving some props here. So, James, his actor is Troy Baker, and Troy Baker is the voice of Joel from the video game. So we, that was awesome. We have already 2 in the past. I don't know. There's some for the finale. There is one more actor apparently. That's all I can say. But we do have. We have. This is our 3rd voice actor from the games, and being the voice actor, they're also whatever they have the whatever they're called. Everything on them. They're doing the animation and the whatever. What is that called? A good actor. Motion capture, mocap. Yeah, motion capture. So that was it. Yeah,
he was good. I wouldn't have thought, and not that I, like you said, that voice actors aren't actors, but he was genuinely like a good actor, I thought.
Yeah. It was funny. I don't know if you guys watched the like them discussing the episode at the very end, but it was really cool how he was just like talking about how he had to basically like, go from being Joel to what he thought was going to be a clicker role, but ended up being like a little bit bigger of a role for him. And, it was cool hearing his perspective on, I'm no longer in the mindset of like, I am Joel, I'm the good guy, quote unquote. I have to switch my mindset entirely to be this villain. So it was really cool hearing him talk about that.
He did a really great job of like a consistently melancholy expression. Like
Yes.
he just felt like depressed and like on his last like straw and like all that stuff. That I thought was just like really well. I really felt like the desperation off of him the whole episode.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can tell that David was, ego, arrogant with what he is, and then he obviously gives his speech to Ellie later explaining the quote unquote like evil inside him or the violent side of him. But yeah, James just looked like he was following David because life sucks, man, and somebody needs to
literally,
lead.
I
Even when
liked his David this is when he says like he gets his background when he's talking to Ellie and he says essentially like I found God after the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Just like an interesting thing to think about if like everything goes to shit and you just need something. And Ellie kind of makes fun of it, which would be my perspective of it would be like I don't think I would turn to religion after I watched all of this shit happen around me.
Yeah.
But it was still an interesting perspective on it.
Mhm.
Well,
Jimmy, I don't remember him being a preacher in the game. Is that an element they added to the character for the show?
Yeah,
I feel like
they
I
did,
heard
because
that
it
too.
rhymed. It rhymed.
So
That's
yeah,
why.
so they made David even creepier in the show because they made him a teacher who became a preacher, and then we know his bad side, his violent side, his awful side. That's in the game, but his background isn't in the game. So having that background and knowing that he probably was like that in the past too, before the apocalypse, just makes him even worse. And I know we're this is really jumping the gun here, but he gives Ellie this speech about how he finds God or whatever, but then he's talking about how he thinks they're similar, and then he brings up how the cordyceps is answering his questions and symbolizing a lot for him. Did you take it like he wasn't really following God and God was the cordyceps to him, or God or that God just put the cordyceps on Earth to do what they do? Because like
Probably
when
the
he's
second
giving
one.
that speech, I literally was like, "So what is he like worshiping the cordyceps now? Like is he
I mean,
worshiping the infected?"
it goes
He-
into what I was saying about like him calling himself father. Like that's kind of eerily similar to, calling yourself God almost. And so I think off the rip, I would say it was the second reason. Like I think it was just the cordyceps were just placed on the earth, to do their thing, not the first option you had said. But I think I'd never thought the first option was I never even considered that first option of maybe he thinks himself as God and then everyone else around him is cordyceps. So I took it just straight up as it was they were just planted there, I guess.
Yeah, I thought he was using kind of the cordyceps as a comparison to almost justify what he's doing. He wasn't saying they were like God sent. He was just kind of saying, they only are the way that they are because they're fruitful. They want to multiply and they want to protect their own, even if that means violence against others. And just because we think they're creepy fungus, they think that they're family and they're protecting their family and protecting the future of the species at all costs. And he's like, take all that. That's what we have to be doing now. That's what we're up against. I'm going to survive, keep my people safe at all costs, like a cordyceps. So I don't think he was comparing them to a higher power or anything like that. But hey, that's just me.
Well
yeah, that's
said.
money. I like what you just said. Yeah.
And also, Jimmy, did you catch that he said previously he was from the Pittsburgh QZ, which we said the events that in the show happened in Kansas City. A fallen QZ actually happened in Pittsburgh in the game. So I think that was a tip of the cap to the games. And just some more world building, which I can't get enough of. But yes, this is where we get the reveal. And I thought it was very well done, just conversationally turning the tables, saying, yes. And the troop that I sent out scavenging returned with one less man and said that they were hunted down by a crazy man and traveling with a little girl. And she just kind of tightens up on the rifle. James is in the doorway. I thought this was all very well done. This is also the scene where in the video games infected attack David and Ellie, and they are kind of forced to cooperate, which lends to her trusting him even more. In the video game, it's not a rifle that she has pointed at them. She was bow hunting, so she only has a bow and arrow, and David kind of like plays dumb and lets her have control of the situation. And then when infected attack, he reveals that he had a revolver the whole time. So he could have he was never in any danger. He could have asserted himself on the situation in the video game, but I was a little Little disappointed they omitted the infected attack. I think it would have added a little bit to her trusting him more. Also, I just like the infected, but
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, obviously, I'm always, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I'm always in for more infected. But now that you brought it up, I kind of do like how the show went about it, because this is a different, I guess, this enables a trust in a different sense, because James clearly had a shot at Ellie. Like, Ellie had no idea that he was even coming up from behind him. And for David to be the one to be like, hey, James, you can put your gun down. That for Ellie. See, even here, I'm thinking like David might be a good guy because of how he's treating Ellie and how he prevented James from taking the shot on her when he fully had the opportunity to do that and then take a full deer to back to their starving people. Like, David had plenty of opportunities to capitalize, but he just he chose to keep Ellie around. And I think that was actually a really good decision. But of course, I'm going to agree with you in the sense that clickers are always nice too.
I mean, that's the problem, because you find out why he's keeping her around, which is the big problem. But even me knowing what the deal is, I agree with you guys. Like, I wanted to pick apart everything, but all the way until pretty much he smacks the girl, unless I'm missing something right before that, that's kind of the start of the reveal of who he is. But I mean, all the way up to him saying, James, put the gun down. We're going to give her the medicine. We're going to let her go. My head went right to, for a TV show, pretending I don't know the game. It was just like, hey, we're just going to freaking follow her track. She's going to go right home. And then we'll get to Joel, which, that's another thing about Ellie's inexperience. Joel would have known that, but Ellie just ran right home. But, whether she did, we didn't see the scenes. We don't know if she actually covered any tracks or not. But yeah, all the way up until that point, as pretending like I don't know who David is, was like, I mean, he's coming off fine for Kyle and David right now, I would say, and David, Kyle and Dave right now.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, the only subtle, I think, pieces are of David being bad is like when they're talking about religion and James kind of is hesitant about the religion role, and he's like you should follow, like he's kind of like still pushing, like you should still follow me, like your faith is like dwindling,
wavering.
Like we need to so there are like, but those were like way more subtle than just straight
I mean
up
there's a difference
someone.
between like, hey, I'm a religious figure who has like a big head versus, hey, I'm a religious figure who eats people and preys on little kids and whatever. It's just so yeah, I know what you're saying, Dave. There was definitely some red flags because, again, we all knew that like going for that religious part of the show, there's going to be some probably red flags there, but we don't see the actual bad, violent, awful side of him until a little bit later.
So the exchange happens. David lets Ellie escape with the penicillin. They take the deer back to their village. We get this shot of Ellie contemplating how one injects someone with penicillin, because who the hell would know? I once upon a time studied 4 years pre-med. I don't know how I would go about it. She opts to just inject it right into the wound. Whatever. I don't know what the dose is. I don't know if this is the right
my
thing.
thing too. Exactly.
Am I?
Shooting him up, and I was like, oh man, okay.
Luke and I were saying the same thing. Luke, like, she injects him right in the wound, and Luke's like, you don't want to do it there. And I was like, where do we, like, do you go for the vein on the arm? Like, is that where you would want to do it? So I think it's just hilarious that she just blindly was just like, screw it, like that's infected, I'm just gonna hit the spot right where it's at.
I don't know, because I have, again, obviously no idea how it works, but part of me, like a working theory, because obviously we get to a point where Joel is out and about and he's moving around and it's a little bit labored, but like it's infinitely better than it was a day, 6 hours, 2 hours ago. I don't know if he's just on like a berserker high and it's gonna crash. Like, I don't want like him to go out with a whimper because of this. Like, I feel like I want like an active, if he's going to go out, like it better be an active finale. So I'm okay with it maybe being like a miracle cure for him a little bit, but it did feel a little, I was like, he is just like really getting after it right now. And he's been like bedridden for the past 2 episodes.
Once she kind of gets him semi-conscious, communicates what the deal is, I could understand Joel like riding a berserker high, like gotta save
adrenaline
for sure. I agree. I kind of just completely overlooked it because I enjoyed this episode a lot.
Brian, I don't know, we can decide together if we want to say the difference between the show and the game with how he gets injured. but I mean, in the game, it's even more unrealistic. So just take it for what it is.
Okay, fair
enough.
Should we say it?
Well,
then a monkey.
I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any.
No,
yeah, what how he gets injured?
He falls off like a second story at the university and gets impaled, kind of like through the gut,
like a pipe through the gut. Yeah,
and actually after that, Ellie like gets him off of it. And he still has to like stumble out of the university to the horse. He fights like 6 people off, not just wrestle one guy and gets off on a horse
with a hole in his stomach.
You're like playing Ellie's like got you on one
worse.
shoulder. It is much worse, but like it wouldn't be realistic for the show, I don't think. So
it would be crazy if they threw Pedro Pascal out of a building onto a fucking spike.
Not only is it hilarious that he falls onto a spike and it goes through his body. I mean, from where he fell in the game, you would say like, "Ow, that would freaking hurt, bro." Like that would break my back, maybe, or like give me a concussion, knock me out. Instead, he gets impaled also, and then they're just like, "Hey, give you that med kit. Let's bandage that thing up." I don't know if you remember Brian, but like Ellie just does her thing with the hand, or Joel like wrap the tape around. All right, our health's back to normal. All right, we're good.
It's funny because that's exactly how I didn't want Tess to go out in episode, what was it, 2? I was like, if she falls off the ledge here and just like dies, like that's exactly what happened. It sounds like exactly what happens to Joel here, is that he's like on a ledge and he just falls off. Like, and if that was the end of Joel, that would just be that'd be some way to go.
You know, it's crazy. I was I don't know what they're going to do when it comes to how much they change for the game to the show, but I thought it would have been interesting. I don't know if you guys are seeing this or not, but like when she was showing, or when she brought the needle out and she kept looking at his scar or his wound, whatever you want to call it, and she stabs it, I was thinking it looked like a bite.
Yeah, it did.
And it could have been a fake out, just like how she says, "Hey, I'm infected. Hey, I'm infected." Like it could have went the other way around, and him saying, "I'm infected," if that was a necessary thing, but instead he just kicks some ass and takes names and just moves on. But
does he ever?
Badass Joel, man.
All right.
So who wants to see a kid get slapped? That's what we're about to talk about.
I want to talk about
it. Brings the deer in. And he right away says the plan. Okay, I'll let her go so we could double back and try and chase down this crazy man and bring him to justice. And this little girl immediately, upset about her father, says we should kill them both. And David didn't like that.
No, he did not. He keeps that pimp hand strong.
Yeah, that's how he keeps the civilians in line. You just got to smack a child every couple of months.
This was honestly, I'm potentially a little bit embarrassed to say this, but the slapping wasn't like a completely like evil guy radar going off. It felt like, we're in an apocalypse. It's difficult to keep this many people under line. It's a harsh winter. Like you have to put your foot down at some level. But the big thing for me was that when they give out the food, like he had way more food than everyone else.
Oh, yeah. He had a fat
plate was full as hell. Yeah. And they were like scraping like the bottom of their bowls after like 3 bites. And I was like, that doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, I don't know if, Brian, you're going to jump in and say the same thing I was, but I'm assuming it's because they got there late. Because if you see that
But if they got there late, don't you think they would have less food to eat? Because they didn't start until they said
I guess.
grace.
I mean, dude, trust me. I definitely was like, whoa, that's a lot. But I also was saying, like, comparing it to everyone else, they had already eaten a lot of their food. But
they didn't start. They didn't start until they said
they
were
waiting for the prayer.
Grace. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
You can't say grace in a fucking Davy Boy's house.
People, dude.
Couple things I thought of here. One, he's the leader, so it might be like a flex. I get more. I got to keep myself alive. Number 2, this was amazing because you hear the masses go right to their plate, like slurping all that stuff up, and then it goes to James, who is probably privy to the fact that they're eating humans right now, and he's like contemplating with every bite, like straight out of the 100 kind of stuff, like really struggling with what he's doing.
I didn't even notice that. That's
they
really
were tiny
cool.
He takes a little nibble.
This is another tip of the cap to David is far past a point of having any humanity restricting him left. James is not going to get a double serving of human, whereas David is just going to be like, well, we got more meat. Don't want to give it to waste. And probably you don't want to give the daughter of the man they're eating an extra portion. So David's going to bite that bullet. So I thought they gave us a lot to think about with just like 10 seconds of people going after their food.
I thought he was like totally sliding in onto the daughter, the new widow. It felt like he was sitting at the table and he was like, you know, just because you lost a daddy ain't mean you ain't got a daddy. And I was just like, I think he's trying to bang her mom, but now looking back, he's trying to bang her.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna ask. So first of all, this has a lot of rewatch value, this entire episode, obviously, because you get a half hour, almost 35, 40 minutes before we see the real David when it comes to every aspect of, preying on children, the cannibalism, all that kind of stuff. You rewind it and rewatch it, and you're seeing how he was acting towards Ellie, how he wanted to keep her alive. Same thing for when they're going after Joel and she's trying to do the distraction and he wants to keep her alive at like all costs. And you're like, why the hell does he care that much? And then when it comes to this part with smacking the girl, my question to you guys was, did you think that she was one of his victims currently? Or do you think that she's just like there in the town and she's just sad because her dad died and it is what it is? And maybe she's a potential victim, but
I don't think I have enough evidence to go on whether he was like, do you think, are you asking kind of if he was like almost ruling with an iron fist in the sense it was like, give me your daughters for tribute kind of thing? Or if he
no,
was just
I'm
like,
saying like how he's
like her dad had been alive for
no, yeah, but
until
what I'm
3
saying
days
is
ago.
the whole pedophile side of things, like where he wants Ellie
Yeah.
and he says I
I'm
like
just
when
saying
they fight.
like her
So I'm
dad
saying
was alive. Like, I feel
So
like
you're
you
saying,
couldn't,
yeah,
I just feel
but
like you
who?
couldn't get away with that kind of stuff. I mean, I guess they're getting away with the cannibalism. I feel like it would be tougher to get away with active pedophilia in such a small group and like no one knows.
And I'm going to be
Well,
honest.
that he does it because he says I like when they fight. I mean, he does it at some point, but we don't know. Yeah, I mean, obviously having two parents, two guardians in this small town would make it hard. But again, could it be something where it's like, hey, try and stop me to the parents because I'm the freaking religious leader?
I'm going to be honest. I didn't get a single vibe of pedophilia up until the very end of when he was about to like do whatever he was with Ellie. Like I didn't even think like I thought he was just a cannibal. I didn't think he was a pedo and a cannibal. I thought that part came out of left field for me. That felt like it was not like drilled home that he was doing that to other people. So for me, I didn't see it as her being a victim. I just thought that she was just a victim of the scenario of being slapped.
Like I said, I thought he was making a move on the mom, like the new widow.
Right.
I thought he
well,
was
at the time, you don't know anything else.
Yeah, I thought he was wasting no time to dig that out, but I think he was.
So I mean, so are they eating the dad? Did the 3 hunters bring the dad back and they're eating the dad, or?
Yeah. Oh,
that was
no.
I mean, how are they getting? That's a good question. Like, how are they getting dead bodies to hang up to butcher without people knowing that their people are dying? Unless they're literally going to find people.
They 100%. They 100% said, "Can we bury my dad?" And he's like, "No, the winter." Yeah, the winter. Which again,
great point.
It was a good point in the moment for me. I didn't even again think of it as cannibalism up until like we see the ear, honestly. So when they're saying that, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like the ground's hard, it's covered in snow. Like if you were to just bury him in snow, like you would just see the body 5 months from now anyway. So I didn't even, but yes, I think that they were planning on eating the father, if not had already eaten him.
Yeah. And it's hard again. I said this a million times, just knowing everything already. I mean, when they bring the venison, quote unquote venison, to the lady for the stew, was that the mom? I can't remember.
That was definitely the dad then, looking back.
Yeah, but and then and like it's what is this? And then he says venison. She kind of like, even her, she like kind of makes like a look. Now that can easily go by you if you didn't play the game at this point. But again, the rewatch value of knowing in hindsight, you look at that scene and you're like, yeah, it's a little sketchy. And again, hey, I want to give the props to the 100 because it's by design. Obviously, they want the cannibalism to be a secret, a surprise, so they made it look straight up like game meat, like it's just venison. But I'll never forget what they made it look like in the 100. And oh gosh, it still turns my stomach. I mean, if you want to think of it that way, where it's like, here it is right in front of you, and obviously you can't be there, and it's not a real thing. It's something you're watching on TV. The 100 did it perfectly in a way that's just like, oh my gosh, I can't even freaking look at that. It's turning my stomach so badly.
Very unsettling. I agree. So let's steer away from the cannibals for a hot second and return to Ellie and Joel. Just Ellie holding down the fort again, waking up in the morning, giving him his penicillin shot, getting a bucket full of snow to like water the horse, I guess, like feed. It's not feeding the horse. Give the horse a drink, you know.
Yeah.
You feed it snow, probably.
I thought she was going to be
You
packing
don't
his
drink
wound
snow.
with the snow, Kyle, and I was going to be giving you props, dude.
Hey. Didn't work
Hey.
out.
But yeah, she sees a flock of birds just get disturbed and fly away. She goes to investigate, overhears the men approaching, and immediately jumps into action, you know, gives Joel the knife, props him up, and is like, yo, you got to kill these motherfuckers if they do get to you, dude. Do not fall asleep. Do not fall asleep. All right, I'm going to lead them away. I'm out. Classic Ellie, like trying to do too much, in my opinion. Stop in the middle of the road. Hey, motherfuckers, fire, then gallop away. All she had to do was be like, as she's galloping past, like whistle or something, like clap, and then like don't break your stride.
I was even
girl.
thinking you don't even need to bring attention. As long as they see the footprints of the horse, that alone might be enough to be like, okay, they left on horseback. Like, let's try and track them.
It had to be something that got their immediate attention so they wouldn't look at the houses. You know, they wouldn't turn back around towards Ellie if it's just the tracks, but something like you said, Brian, where just even if you're going to shoot the gun, just shoot it in the air and keep the stride of the horse going. I mean, and I don't even know, like, was she just trying to distract them? Was she aiming at them? I don't freaking know. I mean, if I was her, I'd be freaking, I'd be aiming at them.
And to keep nitpicking, I mean, she could have easily just had also gathered momentum and speed and then maybe fired the gun and said, hey, fuckers, rather than like kind of standing there saying, hey, fuckers, for them to like.
She could have.
But she gets cut off so quickly, so spectacularly. I was even kind of confused. I was like, is she just like banging rights and like just keep circling back towards them? Like, how is he just like cutting through a backyard and getting right next to her? I was a little confused by that, but it was whatever. Just the scene of the horse getting shot and her flying was like, oh my God. Okay, fuck.
James lines it up and just takes a shot.
James knows what he's doing, man.
Yeah, and this was another kind of positive for David if you could overlook the slap like Kyle could, because James and his boys wanted to kill her. And if you take a step back from us loving Joel and Ellie, like that is the correct advice to give your leader as a right-hand man. It's like, hey, it's an extra mouth to feed. Her posse tried to kill our boys. Like, this is sign
too.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially when you're privy. Especially when you're privy to, it's not just another mouth to feed, it's another mouth to feed human body parts.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a double whammy.
Instead of having to feed her, you'd feed her to other people.
Yeah. Yeah, jeez.
That's a win.
True that. Well, in any rate, James says no. He stops it before they can kill Ellie, puts Ellie in his arms and like walks her back, leaves two of his men behind to go door to door to try and look for Joel. So one such man from the party, while searching for Joel, is unlucky enough to stumble upon the very basement that Joel is residing in, and Joel gets the jump on him. This is a really good Ruthless Joel episode, and I think me and Jimmy were critiquing them for not showing his dark side that is on full display in the video games. I think this whole scene of him, well, this scene and then the subsequent interrogation scene is very good representation of Joel's character. So we'll get to that. Kind of jumping back and forth here. We flash to Ellie waking up in the jail cell in David's village. And they kind of have the first conversation while she's in the cell where he wants her to join him. She is standoffish as per usual. I don't know, not too much to get here. Of course, she's not going to join this guy at this point in time.
Is this when they hold hands through the cell?
Yeah. So, Dave, this is my question to you: the hold hands part, that didn't do anything for you in that way?
No, because again, it was he.
I mean, if I guess if you're like a preacher and you're a fatherly figure, you're trying to be like, hey, like and plus, hand on the shoulder, hand on the whatever, because the only thing you could touch is the hand. But I mean, again, I don't know, man. I had the preconceived notion, so I was like, no.
Yeah. And plus, well, for me, it was he grabbed the bar first, and then Ellie was the one that put her hand on his, and then he countered by putting his hand on top of her.
No. She put her. Yeah, she doubles it up.
Oh, okay. But so I didn't get I didn't get either way. I didn't get sexual vibes because I'm just like I'm seeing it as him trying to just like bring in. To me, again, I'm watching with fresh eyes at this moment, I'm thinking, okay, he's just trying to be extra nice and recruit her.
Since we're talking about it, Jimmy obviously had his preconceived notions because the voice actor and Neil Druckmann have confirmed that the character David in the video game very much had sexual intentions for Ellie past this. That is his prime ultimatum of leaving her alive. I will say in the show, they definitely made it a read between the lines kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think if you were only watching the show, we weren't talking about it on this podcast. I don't even think you can confirm from that line where he says, I like the fight. That's my favorite part. He could just like fucking killing kids.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know.
It's super creepy. Again, it's a read between the lines thing. I full on think they were giving us enough evidence to come to that conclusion. But Dave, I probably wouldn't have seen it by any one instance that they gave us in this show. You have to kind of paint that picture for yourself.
Yeah, it's right at the end is the only time where it was kind of, even in, like you said, it's not even like fully clear to me. It wasn't even fully clear to me after they get the whole reveal there. But yes, you're right. Like, it is read between the lines, at least for me.
I miss a lot, but right when he put his hand on the fucking jail door, I like knew 100%. I was like, oh,
yeah, that's what we're getting at
fuck. Okay.
Yeah, that went over my head.
Like, we could do great things together, and like he's like, I need a partner, like an equal, and I was like, you don't even know her. Like, where is this coming from? And I guess maybe that would have maybe been less obvious with the clicker scene of them together, because he could have interpreted it that way. But without that scene, I went right to being sexual. And I mean, whether it's right or wrong to have this preconceived notion of the, I guess, specifically Catholic Church of, what the
what's going on there.
Potential, I don't even know the right words. It said the past of the Catholic Church. Reminds me of a great line from Succession in season 1. But for me, it was alarm bells immediately. I was like, oh, okay, he is just he's
I think the combination with what he was saying. Yeah, I mean, like Kyle, like what you said, he was acting like it's like, I'll be the king and you'll be the queen, and I need some, like, and
because if anything, I feel like James has been like a perfectly fine friend, equal partner. Like, didn't seem like there was anything wrong with James, but I guess the thing wrong with him is that he's an adult male.
Well, to be fair, James was disagreeing on him on several occasions in the show. I think they showed us that specifically.
Yeah, well,
even in the first scene,
he just wants someone to fucking just suck up to him, I guess.
Absolutely,
like, if you're actually a leader, first of all, you're not taking the biggest plate, and second of all, you'd want people around you that are able to check you on your shit.
Yeah, and if the conversation didn't go the way it did, and maybe if I didn't have the preconceived notion, like if he said it in a different way with different words, I could have seen it as maybe like, again, I'm the father, you're the daughter, I'm the father to everybody, see me as the leader, just like the cult thing, follow me, and then he puts his hand on her hand. Yeah, that's one thing, but doing like you'll be my equal, and like, again, I'm the king, you're the queen, I need you. It just, that's where I was like, no, I don't know, man.
And the pedophile angle certainly makes it all the more unsettling that he was a teacher before
the
outbreak.
So that's actually one of my questions that I had is, so I'm sure that this post-apocalyptic world brought out obviously the worst in him, but do you think he was a good teacher? Like, just a real quick question. Like, do you think he was like hitting kids?
He seems good, like speaking in front of a group and making people feel comfortable.
Yes, I agree.
Like, if he was having these thoughts while he was a teacher, obviously
that's probably not.
I think a lot of predators are good at doing that, like making people feel comfortable. Right. And so I don't know. I mean, that's a good question though, Dave. Like, I guess deep down, was it always a thing? Like, did he do it? Did he act on it, or did he wait until the apocalypse just like shit hit the fan and it, like you said, brings out the worst in everyone, and that's when he starts acting on it? I guess we'll never know. But yeah,
has there been a character that's commented on that in this season of like how it's like revealed the true nature of people, not that it's made them evil or something like that? I feel like we've had that conversation before, but I could just
I'm definitely thinking
of shit at a wall.
Definitely Alice in Borderland comes to mind.
That is probably what I'm thinking of, Dave.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in any rate, like I said, we were flashing back and forth between David / Ellie and Joel just going on a revenge tour. So let's get back to that revenge tour where Joel kind of is just playing with his prey, and you need to coax this information out of the only two people that are confirmed with the group. He's going to get that information. Threatening to pop someone's kneecap out.
Oh, yes.
Going for the stab without even really asking anything and being like, these are the stakes. Your kneecap's coming out. I couldn't. I don't think I would be a good torturer. If I'm being honest, I couldn't do that shit. But
yeah, I'd be like, dude, I'm so sorry. Does that hurt?
I also feel like I would be a terrible torturer. I would pass out.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Nah, we would just not be productive.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen
my pain tolerance is not high enough.
We'd be fainting on each other. Nobody would get any information.
Is it Deadpool 1 or 2 when it's like Deadpool's sidekick, the guy that works at the bar who's like a complete nerd, like he gets captured by the guy. And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna like torture the shit out of you." He's like, I will literally tell you anything you want. Like, I don't handle pain well at all. Like, that would be me.
Yeah.
He's like, I just cry when I stub my toe. Like, if you're gonna like, he's talking about breaking all of his fingers, and the guy's like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
That was for sure. Well, this was ignoring the fact that he had taken a complete 180 from laying on the bed to doing all this. I guess also ignoring how fucked up it is in pure objective terms. I was living for this. I thought it was just so great to watch.
He was high on that penicillin, and was he getting shit done? I fucking loved seeing this side of Joel, because it has been a little bit, because a lot of the past few episodes, besides the last episode with Ellie's backstory, had been building him up to be that father figure and kind of switching him to become a quote unquote nicer guy. But this was just a complete revert back to his old self, because I'm sure he was having flashes of his first daughter, Sarah, was it?
Yep. Sarah.
Yeah, he was probably having flashes of Sarah, and then when he wakes up and Ellie's not around, and having known that Ellie was telling him that these people are looking for him, like, there's no time to even be the nice guy here. You got to just get as much information as you can. Even if it's correct, you got to fuck these guys up, because they still, at the end of the day, took Ellie. And even though he doesn't know they're cannibals, it was still the right decision.
It was so badass, I guess, in a fucked up roundabout way, when he just like automatically kills the second guy.
Yeah.
And the guy was just like, I won't tell you shit or whatever after he kills him. And he's like, that doesn't matter. Like, I believe him.
That guy was telling the truth. I can tell. Just like,
he put a lot of faith in that guy's ability to fucking point with the knife. Like, that was just
with
like
his
a
mouth.
funny scenario. Yeah. That was great.
Everything about it, just putting the knife in his mouth in the first place, was amazing. And he knew that he had broken this guy, and the second guy was the cocksmack that probably would have resisted. He's like, I've already been working on the one that I should have been working on. So just great. I mean, horrific, but great Joel scene, especially for people who were waiting for this side of him to come out, because it's been a little bit lacking. But yeah, so Joel really just takes that information and goes to the resort, which I don't think we've said. I think a lot of the key places of the resort looked fantastic, especially the steakhouse, which is very prominent in the video games.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't notice like anything specific about the setting. It was just really cold and snowy.
Again, it still reminded me of where Tommy was. Like the scenery kind of looked very similar, especially when you have piles of snow on all the buildings. It makes it like harder to distinguish them. So that's
that nice walkable downtown Main Street.
Yeah, it's still like exactly. And like, so that's why for me, it was still a little bit confusing. I think by now I definitely had separated the two groups, but it was still hard for me to determine like, how is this?
I would hope by
Tommy's
now you
group?
separated.
Yeah, by now I had, but like it was early on, it was hard for me to decipher. Like, is this not
Tommy's
the same
like, yeah,
group?
I'm going to totally eat Ellie, man. Yeah. I'm going to chop her up, man.
Yeah.
That was
Ellie stew.
The Tommy episode was the episode before the flashback, right?
Yes.
Well, yes. So I thought that was very well done by the show, showing us Tommy's civilization and how their settlement was booming. If we're being honest, that's probably the most pleasant existence we've ever seen. And then they are just force feeding us this horrible existence of survivors who are surviving in the true sense of the word. I mean, they are. It was conditions are grim. So
some pro-communism shit. It was communism equals prosperity and religion equals cannibalism. I think they said
Tommy's
something
town
at the
has
end
no
too.
leader.
Hey,
they said something at the end about how like they had a woman. Like, it was very purposeful that there was like a woman in a very prominent position in Tommy's settlement that was very successful, contrasted with like a man. Who was in this unsuccessful. I feel like they said that.
Well, make of that what you will. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a take on that, but they did say that that was purposeful.
Though I digress, Joel gets to the resort, kind of stumbles upon their storehouse. He sees Ellie's backpack. He sees the dead horse. And then going through, he sees the hanging human carcasses. He's like, all right, if I thought it was bad before, now I know it's bad. I got to get our girl. And that will take us back to David and James, who David has given up trying to keep her alive. And it's time to make her food.
Which is crazy to think about, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but
no, you're good.
Because of what you just said. They got a whole horse.
Yeah,
you could eat a horse,
right?
Like it's dead. Just eat the horse. Like there's
they're still serving up,
and they have the deer.
Yeah, there's no need, and there's 3 dead bodies. Like, why would you need to kill Ellie, who's this little girl? Like, how much meat are we getting out of here?
Well,
like,
they showed that they have a storehouse, so they can just leave it for the winter.
Yeah,
hey, if you're trying to survive, food is food, and if you're already past your limit. She's food now, and if she's not going to live, she's food. That's where these people are at.
Seemed gratuitous, and obviously he was like, "All right, well, fuck, we can't keep her alive." So,
totally fucked up a question, but like, how many people would Ellie even feed? Like, she's not that big.
Like Dave.
Yes.
Come on now.
I'm just saying, like,
how many meals are they getting?
Well, I'm just saying,
a day? Like her. And
yeah,
Joel
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to encourage here. Is like, what's the point? Like, if they're already low, they're low on food. Like, what is one girl? Like, what does that offer your society? Like,
another day.
Yeah, for like 5 people. For
you know what they say? Another day, another dollar.
I'm glad none of us like immediately had an answer to that and was like, well, if you think about
it, about 12.
All right. So this scene really just goes from 0 to 100 quick. They rip her out of the cell. Butcher knife is cocked, and Ellie plays her final card left to play. I'm infected. I'm infected. Check the arm. You can see she's always got that card to play. It's a great card too, because everybody knows what that mark means, and she had bit David previously, so she's like, I'm infected now and you're infected too. David is smart enough to put, like, the math doesn't add up, but it kind of disorients them just enough for her to take advantage of the situation, and it's curtains for James. But Dave, you are sitting on a thought. Let me hear it.
No, this was just incredible, because I think even in the like the post-credit discussions of like how they made the episode and everything, it was really cool because it didn't really process until they were talking about it. But like, I'm sitting here waiting for Joel to be the savior of the day. Like they have her on the table, like the knife is coming down, and I'm just waiting for Joel to bust in through those doors, and he never does, which gives more credit to Ellie for getting out of here. But that was literally like when she said that, because I'm thinking my whole time, but besides the fact that like, okay, Joel's got to be coming any second, like if he isn't coming, like how the fuck does she get out of this? And she literally utters the words that I don't even think I would have thought of in the moment there, but her saying that I'm infected and then showing the wound was genius by Ellie. I think it was literally her only out, legitimately her only out, because otherwise that little what do you call it, machete was just coming right down for her.
Dude, she got busy as hell, quick as hell with that machete. She just put that right in his neck deep.
Dude, that was
like, oh my
God. I loved it. I freaking loved it.
Yeah.
So it's funny you guys are saying machete, because in the video games it was a machete, but in this it was a butcher knife. Yeah, which I thought made a better effect for the cannibalism angle.
Yeah, definitely.
It worked. Didn't really matter. Still a nice hacking tool, but Jimmy, thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, 2 things I want to say. To your guys' point, I think it was Kyle especially was saying how much of a badass Ellie has been this episode. Actually, it might have been Dave or Brian. One of you guys.
Yeah, one of you guys.
I mean, she doesn't show any sign of like I'm scared or I need to hesitate or anything until the moment where they're about to chop her up, and she still thinks to say, "Hey, I'm infected, but I'm infected." Like her going, no, right there was the first time she broke at all.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go past the fact that we forgot to say the freaking amazing line when she breaks his finger. And the whole time he's like, what's your name? What's your name? What's your name? And then as he's walking away, she's like, Ellie. You can tell him, Ellie, who broke your mother effing fingers, whatever it is. Like, oh my gosh.
Mic drop, baby. That was fucking loved it.
I mean, Bella Ramsey destroyed this episode. And and they've been destroying every episode with every single aspect of emotions that you can think of coming out of a 14-year-old girl. This one was the rage. And I mean, we saw it at the end of last episode when she's smashing things up, but the rage and the wrath and her violent side, woo, man, she killed it.
Yeah, both the violent sides for Joel and Ellie. We need more of it. We need more
She's
of
learning.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, she's learning.
Yeah, so let's just continue on here. She leaves that jail cell room, whatever, and kind of goes into the restaurant area of the restaurant, the seating area.
Now that you're saying this, did they, I guess, install that jail door in the restaurant? Like, did the steakhouse have a drunk tank?
Could have been like a storage for supplies. I don't know.
I mean, it's funny to think about.
It wasn't like a jail cell. It was just a little fence, but served the purpose.
It's the place they put people before they're going to get eaten. Like if you do something bad, you get put in jail. Oh, okay. Like you get the death penalty. Let's just put you right next to the cutting board.
With the ear next to
this
it.
This was intense, but I feel like I never got like an impending like doom type of presence from David. He always felt like, not that he was necessarily acting, but like that like he wasn't truly about like or cut out for this type of life. Like not like you would get from like a Scream movie, like a Chase in a Scream movie where like you're feeling like this person is like invincible and like so powerful. It was just kind of waiting. He was just kind of unraveling himself mentally versus like him being like super intimidating.
So were you with Dave and just waiting for Joel to come in and save the day? Or
definitely.
Okay, gotcha. Well, like I said in the beginning, this was Ellie's episode, and while he was there to collect her so she could just walk out and have nothing left to do, she very much handled the entire situation. So great Ellie episode overall. But Dave, lots of Daves in this episode.
There is.
Jimmy, lots of Jameses too. But Jimmy, how were you feeling about this? Because this is a boss battle in the video games. Her crawling around, kind of so trying to hide as the thing is just going up in flames in the background. I thought it was very well done. Yeah,
I thought they did it really well. Yeah, I have no complaints as well. I mean, as soon as she throws the log that's on fire, the place starts going up. I was like, oh man, they're gonna give it to us. And you see the smoke and it's just engulfing in flames. And as soon as they have her like crawling around, I was like, I remember her crawling around as Ellie. That was fun. Yeah, it was cool.
It was just such a well done scene. Like just all the angles of just Ellie like cowering, and then also like kind of you can see the gears kind of turning for how she wants to like tackle the situation. I just think I see where you're coming from, Kyle, but definitely here at least was the peak of the performance of David. Like just being, I guess maybe what it was like the surrounding of flames too, which kind of also probably was a representation of hell in some sense, you know, with like the 100%. Religion and everything, and like him being the devil probably in these people's like, well, at least in Ellie's eyes, rather than a god like to the other people.
I don't even mean it like in like a negative way that he.
No, but I totally see what you're saying.
Yeah,
like Melanie Linsky, like had like
great.
Yeah, when you think of like the other leaders that we've been introduced to, like Melanie Linsky was definitely like she was just full on anger and aggression, whereas David's been kind of passive, reserved with a combination of anger. So it's kind of hard to like distinguish the two. But
yeah, he seemed more like unhinged, like he had lost it versus like him being like in control of himself and like
like a methodical killer that you're expecting to take control of the situation.
Just checked out, like the way that Melanie Linsky just very calmly orders them to kill all the people in the cell. Was like that was like whoa, intense, like a powerful moment. This was just like a man at the end of his rope, just like going crazy. I mean, I guess cannibalism does make you a little crazy, right? I don't know if that's a scientific fact or like a trope, but
and then Kyle, like what you're saying too, it's just whether you thought Joel was going to come save her or she was going to save herself, her versus David didn't feel like she couldn't handle it in that situation. It was like 1v1.
I was riding for her.
Yeah.
And it worked out totally better. Way better. Obviously, it was the way it was supposed to work out, is Ellie killing him. But like it was like so just way better that way than like Joel having to come and save her. Obviously, it's very symbolic. I mean, she has the moment where she's just over and over and over and over and over and over just hacking at his face, which I mean for me brought me back to the end of episode 1 where Joel is doing the same thing to the Fedra guard, just wailing, wailing. And I was just like, wow, this is like, I was speechless. I was like, this is so like emotionally intense.
Yeah, after like 5 hits, I'm like, okay, is she gonna stop soon? But just kept going and going. Yeah, it was fucking brutal. But I mean, when you got all
reminds us of Thaisa and a certain animal.
Yeah, not for these
Jimmy,
two.
just
Yeah.
leave the chat. But I was trying to be ambiguous, and I don't think that was giving away too much.
Nah,
but
that's
in a way, I mean, she just wails on him. 25 hits, only probably needed 2 or 3 good strokes.
a certain animal.
Yeah.
For all our YouTube listeners, or I'm sorry, for the podcast listeners, holding up my John Ralphio Wolf Howling in the Night shirt.
That's such a great shirt, man.
That was perfectly clear that you made that comment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess cinematography wise, it's David kind of running the show, searching for her as this place goes up in flames, evoking thoughts or imagery of hell, and then she brutally murders him only to rise in the flames. Is she kind of the new, not David, but is
Khaleesi?
Is she now entering like kind of her hell period? Is there no going back? Any shred of her juvenileness or innocence, I guess, is surely gone after this. I mean, the James and David, correct me if I'm wrong, are her first human kills confirmed, like here?
Yeah, that we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, because she paralyzed the guy by shooting him, and that was supposed to be the big deal, where Joel was not able to help her, but understood, like, oh gosh, you're too young for this. You shouldn't be dealing with this. And she was, having some issues with that one. Now, all of a sudden, fast forward the time skip, however many months it ends up being, and now we're into the winter, and she's hacking dudes about 25 times, and she's chopping freaking James with a machete / whatever butcher knife. And I mean, it was amazing because she had it. I don't want to say had it together, but she was a straight badass. She took care of the situation, and then as soon as she got to Joel, she broke down like anyone would.
Yeah.
And you have to assume it was a major, major breakdown as a 14-year-old girl. But I mean, gosh, what she went through in this episode. And I said that I was wondering if it needed a little bit more time. I still think they nailed it. And I don't know if they did. I don't know if you wanted to, even if it was necessary to hammer home a few more things, like if you really wanted to hammer home the pedophile thing, or really hammer home, I don't even think that you needed anything else for the cannibal.
Well, at least the
James is calling for more cannibalism and pedophilia.
I'm just saying.
Jimmy,
I'm just saying, if you wanted to show the evilness more of him before she hacks his freaking face off.
I'll back you up, Jimmy, in the sense that like I might have just been slow watching.
James and David, pro cannibalism.
Coincidence, James and David. Yeah, but no, the one thing I will say is maybe my mind was just really slow while watching this episode, but even when I saw the ear on the ground, like Ellie jumps right to cannibalism, and I'm like, I just assumed it was like they were torturing someone. Like I didn't even think of cannibalism. So like to go into your point of like they could have. And to go into your point, like they could have easily dove into maybe showing more body parts or something to kind of really show that it was cannibalism. Because again, for me, I saw the ear and I was like, oh, they were just torturing someone. But and then it's not until
they
Ellie
do discuss it after. Yeah,
it's not until Ellie literally says that they're eating people is when I'm like, oh shit, they're eating people.
While you guys are saying, and I guess I was at the beginning, we could have used more at the same time. I remember Kyle said this about the pilot. This felt like one of those episodes where they just go from scene to scene to scene to scene, and there are no wasted moments of this episode. Yeah. And then by the end of it, when the credits start rolling, I just had to take a deep breath and be like, wow, that was was a jam-packed like 55 minutes, whatever it was. So, if
you're in their shoes at the end, like Ellie's emotional release, like I was sharing it with her.
Like, I have chills right now just thinking about that scene.
Yeah, I think that might have been the best acting of the episode is when she finally walked out and like Joel grabs her from behind, just like mentally drained, emotionally drained. She spent all of her existence on the past 15 minutes of screen time. She couldn't muster up anything else. She could just like flail and be like, don't touch me, don't touch me. And it's Joel. He's like, and he says, "I got you, baby girl." Like, now it's my turn. You done good. Like, let's just get the blanket over you and get you home.
Ellie, like you could see it on her face. Like she walks out of there like just soulless, nothing in her eyes. Like she has no emotions whatsoever. She gets grabbed by Joel, and of course, her instant reaction is like, "Oh shit!" Like to throw a tantrum because you don't know who it is. But like the moment she locks eyes, like. like her eyes were telling so much in this, like in this like few seconds here of her acting. Like you could see him being emotionless into being like, thank God you're fucking here, Joel. Like just the facial acting from Bella Ramsey this episode was fucking incredible. And like even now, just talking about it, I have chills on my arms because that scene, it was just so good hearing Joel say "baby girl." We hadn't heard that since episode 1, I think. Like it's been a minute. So it was perfect fucking ending to an incredible episode, and it just really evoked a lot of emotions out of me for sure.
All right. I mean, that's all we got. Any lasting thoughts from James or Kyle?
Like before you get into the rundown of our sign off?
Yeah.
Or like, are you gonna ask more questions? Okay.
I didn't have any more questions.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. I didn't know if I should blow mine to load now or wait 35 seconds.
Blow it, baby.
Which is quite difficult for me.
Pretty easy for me.
Well, okay, I think It just reminds me of the classic. I'm gonna put some lotion on your back in about 30 seconds. But,
NPH.
I'm just so curious to see what type of scene they choose to start next episode with. I don't think we're gonna jump like right into where we left off. So I'm really gonna be watching for Ellie's demeanor. Like you said, like there's really no going back from this. It has to impact her in some way. It would be weird and wrong and way too noticeable if it didn't have some level of impact on her. So going into a season finale, what's Ellie's mental state going to be like? What kind of irreparable damage has been done? Not that I want to see negative, outcomes for her. Just like the realism kind of has to be there for us. And just Joel, man, is he going to have like a crash off this penicillin? Like, is he good to go now? Like, is just kind of where he's at. I'm interested to see that.
Yeah.
When you say all that, it's just, for me, it's like we have so much left in this finale episode that I feel like we need to cover. Like, are we gonna see Tommy next episode, do you think? Like
it better be $1:15, $1:20.
No, well, I'm sorry, bro, but it's 43 minutes.
What? No way.
Something like that. Yeah.
That's insane.
I can confirm, but it's somewhere in the 40s.
Dude, I'm
flabbergasted.
So I'm based off that. I have to assume no for Tommy. Like, again, remind me because it has been a couple episodes. So now that we've done the whole Tom, we've rescued Tom. Like we rescued Tommy. So that
we did a great job rescuing Tommy.
That quest has been checkmarked. The next quest was to get to the university to meet up with the Fireflies. So I guess that's still the mission where we're at. Is like you got to still get them to the Fireflies.
Salt Lake.
She's still trying to be the cure.
There must be another time skip.
I'm
guessing.
Yeah, I could see a time skip.
Confirmed 43 minutes.
Ew, that pisses me off.
I brought this up in the beginning of the episode, and it's not a spoiler to say, like, I'm really wondering how they're going to do this.
Yeah.
To your point, Kyle, you want to see what happens, and it's a fair point. Like, you need to know how Ellie reacts to the situation. She just broke down fully. Like, you could expect someone to be, like, in a comatose state, just psychologically for like weeks after dealing with this. But is there going to be a time skip? Are they going to have to just pretend like, I don't know, let's just move forward and really just time skip, or just jump to the next part of the story and get to the finale episode?
Yeah, it feels like they have to just get to something, man. 43 minutes. We got to fucking hit the ground running, baby.
And here's the thing, like again, I'm going to choose my words carefully, but they said that they wanted this to end with the end of game 1.
That was going to be my question.
I'm starting to wonder if they're going to just leave a cliffhanger. Like, maybe they won't actually end it from the end of game 1 in a certain way. I feel like they have to. I don't know how you would cliffhang us, but I do want to say that Neil Druckmann came out and they did say and Bella Ramsey said that it's a divisive. Is that right? Divisive?
Divisive. Say it again.
That's
Bella and Neil came out.
Yeah.
If only you had a teacher like David, you would remember that.
Yeah, I
would have taught you so much.
Oh, well, not you. Come on. Dave. I'm gonna ping pong this to you because this is related. But do you think Joel?
So you're not even gonna let me freaking fix myself? You're gonna make me look like an asshole.
No, it's way funnier that way. It's so much more fun when you keep it in. I said, what did I call the jail door? A door? A dar.
A dar.
A
dar.
Yeah, I don't know where.
Yeah,
that
what an
came from.
idiot saying.
I was
dar,
thinking
dude.
of the bars, like visualizing them in my
Yeah.
head, and then just that came out.
I was
But,
thinking
Words
of
are just
division
things.
signs and stuff. And
Dave, do you think Joel makes it out of season 1?
Yes, I think we've already had the scare of him having the NDE, so I think it'd be too soon for us to get another one. So I'll say I think he's going to live. But if we're
I was
talking
so
season 2, I don't
gung-ho.
even know.
But it just feels like I'm just of the mind that he's like I feel like they're setting us up for like showing Ellie's growth and that she can kind of what she would be like on her own. But like.
Yeah. You're right.
I would agree. I before this episode, I would have said that he definitely wasn't going to make it out of the season. But it feels unfair to like have him recover fully.
Yeah.
Like after we've had it'll be 2 episodes at this point, basically, where he was somewhat incapacitated, and then he recovers, and then in a
And then she gets killed.
43-minute finale, he dies from another type of
Yeah,
situation.
yeah.
Feels like
He
I would
actually
be-
dies from falling off a ledge.
Yeah, I would feel like that would be unfair,
Gets
but I
impaled.
don't know, man. I have no idea what they can do with it. I'll just, for the fun of it, guess the opposite and say that he's gone. I'm gonna cry.
I don't know.
I'm
what
gonna
to
cry.
expect.
it's an interesting thought that they decided to go 9 and not 10 episodes, and we'll see how they do. I mean, they've been killing it for the first
It's so
8
weird.
episodes, so I trust them.
So,
But again, there's a lot to go. So without spoiling anything, it just feels like it. But again, I would have said that this episode could have had more time based on the gameplay, and they nailed it. So who am I to freaking say?
just curiously, without I guess giving away too much, like, so we're what is 8/9 in math? Like almost 90%. Like, what is that like where we're at in the video games? Like, would you say we're 90% through the game, or are we more like 70, 80 maybe?
Well, it depends on if you're talking like gameplay or where you're at in the actual story. Because
don't care
I guess
know,
actually, yeah,
it-
actual story.
I mean, I
guess we got to be pretty close,
guess we're
right?
at the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
They could do it in one episode, especially how they've done all the other previous stuff. That's why I'm not too worried, because they have nailed the pacing. And like
Yeah.
Jimmy
Yeah.
said, they could cut it like, very close to the ending of the actual game, but not really do everything. Maybe
Mhm.
just leave a little bit of information to start off season 2. I don't know. I'm really not too worried about it, only because they have earned our trust with
Yeah.
regards to pacing.
This has been a phenomenal show, so who cares? They're killing
Yeah.
it. I trust it. And yes, what were you gonna say, Dave?
Sorry, I did not mean to cut you off. You can continue.
It's like pick me.
The finger waving was just totally, that wasn't meant to signal like, I need to get this point in. I was just kind of like just waving my finger around. But go
James
ahead.
and David, man.
Yeah.
couple
Yeah,
characters.
You were just casually doing the sign that we've agreed on that you want to talk.
Yeah, that means it's your turn next.
Yeah, sorry.
Did you
But
lose it,
yeah,
James?
to be as cryptic as possible, I'm just wondering out loud to Brian what could be divisive. That would be a choice, and that's all I need to say, because we can't talk it out. We'll talk it out next episode, maybe, depending
Yeah.
on if it actually gives us the ending. Because if they don't give us the ending, then we can't talk about it till season 2, because that would be spoiling. So we'll see.
They're
You're
gonna
totally
change
right.
Joel's sexuality.
Yeah, that would be,
That's fine with me.
yeah.
That would be quite
you're-
divisive.
You're so right though, Jimmy. It's like, why not just 10 episodes? why 9 is just weird, but you're
Thrones had 10 and until the end, until they got
They
towards
threw
the
a
end.
fucking 6-episode season at us, which looking back is just an insane thought to think about.
Dude, that is totally
Hey.
D&D just being like, get us the
It's
hell
so
out of here.
ridiculous.
You know what? They disgusted all of us, and I'm not even going to waste any time for this
Yeah.
podcast
Fair,
for
fair.
our hatred of
Yeah.
how that
HBO
series
has
wrapped.
HBO has really moved on spectacularly though, because I
Mhm.
mean,
Yes.
this show has been killing it. House of the Dragon
Yep.
was fantastic. I just started watching Succession. I'm watching season 2. Succession's a great show as well. So they have, if you want to say recovered well post Thrones, I think they've definitely done it.
Well, same
my-
with Bella and
Mhm, mhm.
Pedro specifically.
true.
They, oh my gosh.
And
Also
that'll be
true.
my last comment is, if anyone still hates on Bella Ramsey's performance, get the fuck out of our podcast, because
Yeah.
we stand Bella Ramsey as Ellie.
Awards are
Absolutely.
coming. Awards are coming.
Yeah.
And that is
Oh,
a
yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That is a great statement to end this episode on. That is going to wrap up the penultimate episode of The Last of Us Season 1, Episode 8. We got we got a big finale locked and loaded for next week, and I can't wait to just talk about the season as a whole with everybody. I feel like there's been conversations that we might invite the whole 7 of us, the Bingetown TV crew, to maybe just dissect this season as a whole, give our hot takes, etc., etc. So keep an eye out for that. Like I said at the beginning, March is a big month for Bingetown TV. We got The Mandalorian. We just did our first episode of that. Shadow and Bone and Yellow Jackets are going to premiere about midway through March. So all 3 of those shows are very easy binges. Kyle has a thought.
Also, there's behind the scenes talk of Succession episodes as well. So if you like your HBO and Succession, we might be doing something with that as well.
And be ready for that Attack on Titan drop soon coming from me, Kyle, and Alki.
Guys, what we're trying to say is there's a lot on the horizon, and you can find all of it on bingetowntv.com, or you could just save yourself the Ted Hasso.
Also true. Ted Lasso's coming back. We'll be doing an episode on that.
Yes.
Dar, Hasso, and what was Jimmy's
Divisive.
We're all idiots. We're podcasters who don't know how to speak, clearly. So we're going to give it another shot next week. Same time, same place. You guys better be there. As always, if you like what you heard, give us... Oh, my God. As always, if you like what you heard... Let me. As always, if you like what you heard, give Bingetown TV a follow on Twitter and Instagram. Visit us on bingetowntv.com and subscribe to our show on Spotify, YouTube, the Apple Podcast app, or wherever else you may find your podcast. Once again, we are Bingetown TV, and thanks for listening.
The best part about video is that is staying in.